The dust cloud on the horizon caught Olivia Armstrong's attention as she stood on the porch of her modest farmhouse, her hands raw from scrubbing laundry in water she had hauled from the well before dawn. It was September of 1878, and the Texas heat showed no mercy even as autumn approached, bearing down on Brownsville with relentless intensity. She wiped her brow with the back of her hand, squinting against the glare of the afternoon sun as a lone rider emerged from the shimmering haze. Her heart clenched with familiar dread, wondering if this stranger brought more demands for payment, more threats to take what little she had left. Her husband Thomas had been dead for 8 months now, thrown from a spooked horse during a storm, his neck broken before he hit the ground. The grief had been crushing, but the debt he left behind was worse. Olivia had discovered after the funeral that Thomas had borrowed heavily from nearly every merchant in town, had taken out loans she knew nothing about, all in pursuit of making their small cattle operation something grander than it could ever be. Now the creditors circled like vultures, and at 24 years old, Olivia found herself drowning in obligations that totaled nearly $3,000, an impossible sum that might as well have been $3 million. The rider drew closer, and Olivia could make out more details. He sat tall in the saddle, his broad shoulders squared, wearing a dark hat pulled low against the sun. His horse was a fine chestnut mare, well cared for and strong. As he approached the fence line, he slowed, and Olivia's hand instinctively moved to the rifle she kept propped beside the door. "Madam," the stranger called out, his voice deep and steady. He made no move to dismount, keeping his hands visible on the saddle horn. "I am looking for the Armstrong property. Would this be the place?" Olivia stepped forward to the edge of the porch, her chin lifted despite the fear coursing through her veins. "It is. What business do you have here?" The man touched the brim of his hat politely. "Name is Blake Owens, madam. I have been working cattle drives between here and Kansas for the better part of 6 years. I knew your husband, though not well. I heard about his passing and the situation that followed. I wonder if I might have a word with you about a business proposition." Her stomach churned. Another man wanting to take advantage of her circumstances, no doubt. "I have heard enough propositions to last a lifetime, Mr. Owens. If you have come to offer me pennies on the dollar for my land, you can turn right back around." Blake Owens dismounted then, moving with practiced ease. He was younger than she had initially thought, perhaps 27 or 28, with sun-bronzed skin and eyes the color of creek water in summer. There was something about his face that seemed honest, though Olivia had learned not to trust her instincts when it came to men and their promises. "I am not here to steal from you, Mrs. Armstrong," he said, approaching the porch slowly. "May I speak plainly? I know you owe money to half the town. I know Samuel Garrett at the bank is threatening foreclosure within the month. I know Lucas Martin at the general store has cut off your credit. I have done my research because I wanted to understand the full scope before I came here." "That sounds exactly like someone preparing to take advantage," Olivia said sharply, though her voice wavered slightly. The truth of her situation laid bare by a stranger made her feel exposed and vulnerable. Blake stopped at the base of the porch steps, looking up at her with those steady eyes. "What if I told you I would pay off every cent you owe, clear the debts completely, put you in the positive with money to spare for operating expenses?" Olivia felt the world tilt slightly. "In exchange for what? My land, my livestock, myself?" The last word came out bitter, laden with the knowledge that several men had already made indecent proposals, assuming a widow would be desperate enough to compromise her virtue for financial relief. "In exchange for your hand in marriage, Mrs. Armstrong, nothing more, nothing less." The words hung in the hot Texas air between them. Olivia gripped the porch railing, her knuckles white. "You cannot be serious. You do not even know me." "I know you have been up before dawn every day since your husband died, working this place alone. I know you sold your good horses to pay what you could. I know you have not taken the easy way out, though plenty of opportunities have presented themselves. I know you are strong and honest and exactly the kind of woman I would be proud to call my wife. How could you possibly know any of that?" Olivia demanded, suspicion rising hot in her chest. Blake had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "I have been in town for 3 weeks, working at the Patterson Ranch just north of here. I have listened to people talk. I have watched you come to town in your wagon, your back straight despite everything. I have asked questions, maybe more than I should have. So you have been spying on me." Olivia crossed her arms. "I have been trying to understand if my instinct about you was correct," Blake corrected gently. "I am 30 years old, Mrs. Armstrong. I have spent my adult life on the trail, working cattle, saving money. I have nearly $10,000 put away, money I have earned through hard work and careful living. I have been looking to settle down, to start a real life. When I heard about your situation, something in me knew this was the right path." "This is insane," Olivia said, but even as the words left her mouth she was calculating. $3,000 in debt erased. Money for feed, for repairs, for everything she desperately needed. All for marrying a man who seemed, at least on the surface, decent enough. "You would truly pay off all my debts just to marry me?" "I would." "Why not just court me properly? Why this strange business arrangement?" Blake looked down at his boots, then back up at her. "Because you do not have time for courting, Mrs. Armstrong. Samuel Garrett is not going to wait for flowers and Sunday socials. In 3 weeks, maybe 4, the bank will take this land. I am offering you a solution that benefits us both. You get freedom from debt and a partner to help work this place. I get a wife and a home, something I have wanted for longer than I care to admit." Olivia's mind raced. The practical part of her, the part that had been carrying impossible weight for 8 months, screamed at her to accept. The emotional part, the part that had loved Thomas despite his failings, recoiled at the idea of marrying a stranger. "I do not love you," she said bluntly. "I am not asking you to," Blake replied. "Not right away. I am asking you to give us a chance. Let me pay the debts, marry me, and we will see what grows between us. If after a year you find you cannot stand the sight of me, we can discuss other arrangements. But I think, Mrs. Armstrong, that we might surprise ourselves." The audacity of it should have sent her running. Instead, Olivia found herself considering it with a seriousness that startled her. "I need time to think." "You have until tomorrow evening," Blake said, not unkindly. "I am staying at the boarding house in town. Send word with your answer, and if it is yes, I will visit the bank first thing the following morning." He mounted his horse with fluid grace, touching his hat brim once more before turning to ride away. Olivia watched him go, her heart pounding, her thoughts a tangled mess of fear and hope and desperate calculation. That night, she lay awake in the bed she had once shared with Thomas, staring at the ceiling. The house creaked around her, familiar sounds that usually brought comfort but now seemed to echo with emptiness. She thought about her options, which were precious few. She could refuse Blake Owens and lose everything within a month, forced to find work in town or perhaps move back east to her sister's family, a burden on relatives who had their own struggles. She could accept one of the other proposals she had received, offers from men whose eyes held predatory gleam, whose terms included arrangements far less honorable than marriage. Or she could take a chance on a stranger who claimed to want nothing more than a partnership, a home, and the possibility of something real growing between them. By morning, she had made her decision. She hitched up her wagon and drove into Brownsville, her Sunday dress brushed clean of dust, her hair pinned up neatly. The town was bustling with weekday commerce, people going about their business under the watchful eye of the September sun. She found the boarding house on 3rd Street and asked the proprietor, Mrs. Helen Morrison, to fetch Mr. Blake Owens. He appeared on the porch within minutes, looking both hopeful and cautious. Olivia remained in her wagon seat, reins still in hand. "I will marry you," she said without preamble. "But I have conditions." Blake descended the steps, stopping beside the wagon. "Name them." "This is a partnership. I will not be treated as property or as some helpless creature. I have been running this farm alone for 8 months, and I know what I am doing. Your money may clear the debts, but my work has kept this place running. That continues." "Agreed," Blake said immediately. "I sleep in my own room until I decide otherwise. You will not pressure me. You will not demand anything of me that I am not willing to give freely." His jaw tightened slightly, but he nodded. "Agreed, though I hope you will keep an open mind about the future. I need your word that you are not a drunk, that you will not raise your hand to me, and that you will be honest in all our dealings. You have my word on all 3 counts, Mrs. Armstrong. I do not drink beyond an occasional beer. I have never struck a woman and never will, and I believe honesty is the foundation of any relationship worth having." Olivia studied his face, looking for any sign of deception. She found none, only earnest intensity and something that might have been nervousness. "Then we have an agreement, Mr. Owens. When shall we proceed?" "I will go to the bank this morning and settle your debts, all of them. I have already spoken to Mr. Garrett and made inquiries about the total sum. It comes to $2,843, including interest. I will pay it in full. I propose we marry day after tomorrow, which gives us time to make proper arrangements with Reverend Thompson and file the necessary papers. Does that suit you?" 2 days. Olivia's breath caught. 2 days and her entire life would change again. But what choice did she have? "That suits me." Blake's face broke into a genuine smile, the first real expression of emotion she had seen from him. It transformed his features, making him almost handsome in a rugged, weathered way. "Then I will call on you this evening if that is acceptable, so we can discuss the practical arrangements." "Come at 6. I will have supper ready." The words felt strange, domestic, as if they were already playing at being husband and wife. The rest of that day passed in a blur. Olivia returned to the farm and threw herself into frantic preparation, cleaning the house more thoroughly than she had in months, checking the rooms for needed repairs, trying to see her home through the eyes of the man who would soon share it. She baked bread and prepared a stew from vegetables in her garden, wanting to present herself as capable and resourceful. Blake arrived precisely at 6, riding the same chestnut mare and carrying a small bag. He had cleaned up, his face freshly shaved, his shirt pressed. He looked younger somehow, less weathered, and Olivia felt a flutter of something she could not quite name. "Come in," she said, stepping aside to let him pass. "Supper is ready." They sat at her small kitchen table, the same table where she had eaten countless meals with Thomas, and Olivia felt a pang of guilt. Was she betraying her late husband's memory? But Thomas had left her in this impossible situation, she reminded herself. He had gambled their future on dreams too big for their small operation, and she had to survive. "This is excellent," Blake said after his first spoonful of stew. "I have been eating boarding house food and trail rations for so long, I had forgotten what a home-cooked meal tastes like." "Thank you," Olivia said, then ventured a personal question. "You said you have been working cattle drives for 6 years. Where is your family?" Blake's expression grew somber. My parents died of fever when I was 18. I had no siblings. I worked my father's small farm in Missouri for a year, but the memories were too painful. I sold it and headed west, figured I would make a new start. The cattle business treated me well. I am good with animals, good at managing men, and the trail bosses paid fair wages. I saved most of what I earned, always thinking someday I would want to stop wandering. Why now? Why Brownsville? I came through here on a drive 2 years ago. I remembered thinking it was a good town, good country for cattle. When I decided it was time to settle, I headed back this way. Then I heard about your situation, and something in me knew this was meant to be. He looked at her intently. I know that sounds foolish, like some kind of romantic nonsense, but I trust my instincts, Mrs. Armstrong. They have kept me alive and successful this long. Olivia set down her spoon. I do not believe in fate, Mr. Owens. I believe in hard work and practical decisions. This arrangement is practical for both of us. I think we should be clear about that from the start. Fair enough, Blake said, though something flickered in his eyes that might have been disappointment. Then let us discuss the practicalities. After we marry, I will move my belongings here. I am happy to take the spare room you mentioned. I will contribute to all the farm work. I know cattle, horses, basic carpentry, and I am a fair hand at most things that need doing. In return, I hope we can build this place into something profitable, something that supports us both. I want to expand the garden, Olivia said, warming to the topic. With two of us working, we could cultivate more, maybe sell produce in town, and the cattle herd needs to grow. We have only 20 head right now, but with proper management and another bull, we could double that within 2 years. Blake's eyes lit up. I was thinking the same thing. I know where to acquire good breeding stock at fair prices. And I have contacts from my time on the drives who might be interested in buying from us when we are ready to sell. They talked through supper and well into the evening, discussing plans for the farm, for the future. Olivia found herself relaxing slightly, appreciating Blake's knowledge and his willingness to listen to her ideas. He did not dismiss her thoughts or try to override her plans. Instead, he built on them, suggesting improvements while respecting her experience. When he finally rose to leave, full dark had fallen outside. "Thank you for supper and for the conversation, Mrs. Armstrong. I will handle the bank business tomorrow and make arrangements with Reverend Thompson. I will call on you tomorrow evening to confirm everything is in order for the wedding the following day." "Very well," Olivia said, walking him to the door. "Mr. Owens, I want to be clear about something. I am grateful for what you are doing, but I will not be beholden to you beyond the terms we have agreed upon. This is a partnership, an equal arrangement." Blake stopped in the doorway, looking down at her. In the lamplight, his eyes were warm. "I would not want it any other way, Mrs. Armstrong. I am not looking for a servant or someone who owes me. I am looking for a partner, someone to build a life with. I think you are exactly that person." The sincerity in his voice caught Olivia off guard. She found herself nodding, unable to form words. Blake touched his hat and stepped out into the night, and she watched him ride away before closing the door. The next day brought a steady stream of visitors. Word had spread through Brownsville that Olivia Armstrong's debts were being paid in full, and tongues wagged with speculation and gossip. Her nearest neighbor, Martha Patterson, arrived mid-morning with thinly veiled curiosity. "Is it true?" Martha asked, not bothering with pleasantries. "They are saying that Cowboy Blake Owens paid off everything you owed. That is nearly $3,000, Olivia." "What did you have to promise him?" Olivia bristled at the insinuation. "We are to be married day after tomorrow. Mr. Owens is a decent man looking to settle down, and we have agreed to a partnership." Martha's eyebrows rose nearly to her hairline. Married? You barely know him. I barely knew Thomas when we married, Olivia countered. My father arranged that match. At least this time I am making my own choice. But surely you could have waited, could have considered other options. What other options? Olivia asked sharply. Losing my farm. Moving away and starting over with nothing. Taking charity from people who would hold it over my head forever. Mr. Owens has offered me a fair arrangement, and I have accepted it. I would appreciate support from my neighbors rather than judgment. Martha had the grace to look abashed. You are right, I apologize. I only worry for you. But if this is what you want, then I wish you every happiness. Truly, I do. After Martha left, Olivia stood on her porch and looked out over her land. The fields, the barn, the small house Thomas had built when they first married. She had put so much of herself into this place, had worked until her hands bled and her back screamed. Now a stranger was saving it, was offering her a future when she had none. The enormity of it threatened to overwhelm her. Blake returned that evening as promised, his expression satisfied. It is done. Every debt paid in full. I have the receipts here for your records. He handed her a thick envelope. Samuel Garrett nearly fell out of his chair when I walked in with the cash. Lucas Martin at the general store was equally shocked. You have a clean slate, Mrs. Armstrong. The farm is entirely yours, free and clear. Olivia took the envelope with trembling hands. Thank you, she whispered, her voice breaking. You cannot know what this means. I think I can, Blake said gently. I saw the fear in your eyes when I first arrived. I see the relief now. That is thanks enough for me. The wedding? Olivia asked, trying to regain her composure. Day after tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Reverend Thompson has agreed to perform the ceremony at the church. I took the liberty of inviting a few people to witness, if that is acceptable. Martha and Henry Patterson, the Reverend's wife, a few others. I thought having witnesses would make it more proper. Olivia nodded. She had not thought about the details, too focused on the overwhelming weight of what was happening. I do not have a proper wedding dress. Wear whatever makes you comfortable, Blake said. I am not concerned with appearances. I only care that we make this official and legal, so there is no question about our arrangement. The day of the wedding arrived with unseasonable clouds, a relief from the persistent heat. Olivia dressed in her best Sunday gown, a simple blue cotton dress that had been her mother's. She pinned up her dark hair and studied herself in the small mirror. At 24, she looked older than her years, her face marked by months of worry and hard work. But her green eyes were clear, and there was something like hope beginning to bloom in her chest. Blake was waiting at the church when she arrived, dressed in a new suit that fit him well. He looked nervous and pleased all at once, and when he saw her, his face broke into that transforming smile. You look beautiful, he said simply, offering his arm. The ceremony was brief. Reverend Thompson spoke about partnership and commitment, about building a life together through faith and hard work. Olivia spoke her vows in a clear voice, promising to honor and respect this man she barely knew. Blake's voice was steady and sure, his eyes never leaving hers as he promised to care for her, to be faithful, to stand beside her through whatever came. When the Reverend pronounced them husband and wife, Blake leaned down and pressed a chaste kiss to Olivia's cheek. "Hello, Mrs. Owens," he murmured. "Hello, Mr. Owens," she replied, and something shifted in her chest, something that felt dangerously close to happiness. The small gathering of witnesses offered congratulations. Martha Patterson hugged Olivia tightly. "Be happy," she whispered. "You deserve it." Blake had arranged for a meal at the hotel restaurant, a modest celebration with their witnesses. Olivia found herself relaxing as the afternoon wore on, laughing at stories Blake told about his time on the cattle drives, contributing her own tales of farm mishaps and small victories. He was easy to talk to, she realized, genuinely interested in what she had to say. As the sun began its descent toward the horizon, they rode together back to the farm. Blake had loaded his belongings into a wagon that morning, and now he carried his trunk and bags into the spare room Olivia had prepared. It felt strange having him in the house, his presence both foreign and oddly comforting. "I will sleep here," he said, standing in the doorway of the small room. "Unless and until you decide otherwise. No pressure, Olivia. We take this at whatever pace feels right to you." The use of her first name sent a small thrill through her. "Thank you, Blake. I appreciate your patience." That night, Olivia lay in her bed listening to the sounds of another person in the house. Blake moved quietly, respectful of the space, but she could hear the creak of floorboards, the sound of water being poured for washing. It should have felt intrusive, but instead it felt almost comforting. For the first time in 8 months, she was not completely alone. The days that followed fell into a new rhythm. Blake rose early and tackled the heavy work that Olivia had been struggling with. He repaired the barn roof, fixed the broken stall doors, and started constructing a new chicken coop to expand their flock. Olivia continued her usual tasks, but with Blake handling the harder labor, she had time to focus on improvements she had only dreamed about. She expanded the garden significantly, planning for a larger harvest. She organized the house, making space for Blake's belongings and attempting to make the place feel more like their shared home rather than her home that he was occupying. They talked during meals, sharing stories and learning about each other. Olivia discovered that Blake had a quiet sense of humor and a deep love for animals. He spoke to the horses and cattle as if they understood him, with genuine affection. He was patient with her boundaries, never pushing, never demanding more than she was ready to give. 3 weeks into their marriage, Olivia realized she was starting to look forward to Blake's company. She missed him when he rode into town for supplies. She found herself watching him work, admiring the strength in his shoulders, the competent way he handled every task. The attraction startled her, made her feel guilty. Was it too soon to feel this way about another man? One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Blake spoke quietly. "May I ask you something personal, Olivia?" "You may ask," she said carefully. "Are you happy? I mean, with this arrangement, with me being here. I want to make sure I am not making your life harder." Olivia considered the question seriously. "I am happier than I have been in a very long time," she admitted. "You have kept every promise you made. You have been respectful and kind. I find I enjoy your company, Blake, more than I expected to." He turned to look at her, hope clear in his expression. "I am glad. Because I find myself already caring for you quite deeply, Olivia. I know we agreed this was a practical arrangement, but I cannot help how I feel. Every day I am more certain that this was the right decision." Her heart hammered in her chest. "Blake, I need to be honest with you. I am starting to have feelings beyond just partnership. It frightens me. Thomas has been gone less than a year. People will say I did not mourn properly." "People always talk," Blake said gently. "What matters is what we know in our hearts. You honored your husband's memory. You worked yourself nearly to death trying to preserve what he built. But he is gone, Olivia, and you are still alive. You deserve to be happy to build something new." She felt tears prick her eyes. "I feel so guilty, like I am betraying him." Blake reached over and took her hand, the first time he had initiated real physical contact beyond their wedding kiss. His hand was warm and calloused, strong and gentle at once. "Thomas made choices that put you in an impossible position. You do not owe him eternal suffering. You owe yourself a chance at a good life." The tears spilled over then, and Blake moved closer, pulling her into his arms. Olivia let herself cry against his chest, releasing months of pent-up grief and fear and loneliness. He held her tenderly, saying nothing, just offering comfort through his presence. When she finally pulled back, embarrassed by her outburst, Blake brushed a tear from her cheek. "You are the strongest woman I have ever met, Olivia Owens. Never doubt that." She looked up at him, at this man who had appeared in her life like an answer to a prayer she had not known how to voice. "Kiss me," she whispered. Blake's eyes widened slightly, but he did not hesitate. He cupped her face gently and lowered his lips to hers. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, asking permission even as it gave. Olivia leaned into it, her hands coming up to rest on his chest. The kiss deepened, heat blooming between them, and when they finally parted, both were breathing hard. "I have wanted to do that since the moment I saw you standing on this porch," Blake admitted, his voice rough. "Why did you wait?" Olivia asked, her own voice barely above a whisper. "Because I wanted you to want it too. I want everything between us to be your choice, freely given. Otherwise it means nothing." His words broke something open inside her. Olivia realized in that moment that she was falling in love with her husband, truly and completely. Not the desperate gratitude she had feared, but genuine, deep affection that had been growing steadily since he first arrived. "Blake, I do not want separate rooms anymore," she said, her cheeks flushing with the boldness of it, his breath caught. "Are you certain? I do not want you to feel rushed." "I am certain. I want to be your wife in every sense. I want to build a real marriage with you, not just a partnership of convenience." Blake stood and pulled her to her feet, kissing her again with barely restrained passion. When he lifted her into his arms, she laughed, surprised and delighted. He carried her inside, kicking the door shut behind them, and for the first time since Thomas's death, Olivia felt truly alive. The next morning, Olivia woke wrapped in Blake's arms, sunlight streaming through her bedroom window. Their bedroom now, she corrected herself. Blake was still asleep, his face peaceful, and she took the opportunity to study him. The strong jaw, the lines around his eyes from years of squinting into the sun, the fullness of his lips that had kissed her so thoroughly the night before. He was handsome, she realized, not in a refined way but in the rugged, honest way of a man shaped by hard work and the open range. As if sensing her gaze, Blake's eyes opened. He smiled sleepily at her. "Good morning, wife." "Good morning, husband," she replied, testing out the word with new meaning. "Any regrets?" he asked, though his tone suggested he knew the answer. "None whatsoever," Olivia said firmly. She kissed him, then reluctantly pulled away. "But we have work to do. Those cattle will not feed themselves." Blake groaned dramatically. "You are a hard taskmaster, Mrs. Owens." They fell into an even better rhythm after that. The physical intimacy opened new doors of emotional connection. They talked late into the night about their hopes and dreams. Blake shared his vision of building their herd to several hundred head, of becoming one of the most respected cattle operations in southern Texas. Olivia talked about her dream of a real home, perhaps expanding the house, having children if they were blessed with them. "Children," Blake repeated thoughtfully one night as they lay together. "I have thought about it. I would love to have a family with you, Olivia. Sons and daughters running around this place, learning to ride and work the land." "I would like that too," Olivia said softly. "I always wanted children, but Thomas and I never were blessed. Perhaps now is the right time." 2 months into their marriage, Olivia began to suspect her prayers were being answered. Her monthly courses did not come, and she felt a familiar nausea in the mornings. She waited another few weeks to be certain before telling Blake, wanting to be sure. When she finally shared the news one evening after supper, Blake's reaction was everything she could have hoped for. He swept her into his arms, spinning her around despite her laughing protests. "We are going to have a baby," he kept repeating, wonder and joy in his voice. "We are going to be parents." "We are," Olivia confirmed, her own happiness bubbling over. "In about 7 months, if I am calculating correctly." Blake became even more protective after that, insisting she not overwork herself, taking on additional tasks to lighten her load. Olivia protested that she was not an invalid, but secretly she loved his attentiveness, his constant concern for her well-being. As winter approached, they worked together to prepare the farm for the colder months. Texas winters were mild compared to the north, but there was still work to be done. They repaired the barn more thoroughly, stocked feed for the animals, and preserved food from the expanded garden. Blake purchased additional cattle with some of his remaining savings, growing their herd to 40 head. "Next spring we will have calves," he explained to Olivia as they watched the new cattle settle into the pasture. "And the year after that, we will be ready for our first real sale. The money from that will let us expand even more." Olivia loved watching him work, loved seeing his plans come to fruition. He had a gift for this life, a natural understanding of the land and the animals. Together they were building something substantial, something that would last. Martha Patterson became a regular visitor. Her initial skepticism about the marriage transformed into genuine friendship. She taught Olivia to knit baby clothes and helped prepare the spare room as a nursery. Blake worked on building a cradle, his hands careful and precise as he shaped the wood. Christmas came, and Olivia insisted on cooking a proper feast despite her growing belly. Blake invited the Pattersons and a few other neighbors, and their home filled with laughter and warmth. As Olivia watched Blake charm their guests with his stories, watched him rest his hand protectively on her stomach, she felt a profound sense of gratitude. This man, who had been a stranger less than 6 months ago, was now the center of her world. In February of 1879, during a rare cold snap that brought frost to Brownsville, Olivia went into labor. Blake rode frantically to fetch the midwife, Mrs. Dorothy Chen, a skilled woman who had delivered half the babies in the county. The labor was long and difficult, lasting through the night and into the next day. Blake refused to leave, holding Olivia's hand, wiping her forehead, whispering encouragement. When their son finally arrived, squalling and red-faced, Blake wept openly. "He is perfect," he kept saying. "Olivia, he is absolutely perfect." They named him Benjamin Thomas Owens, honoring Blake's father and Olivia's late husband. It felt right, acknowledging the past while celebrating the future. Little Benjamin had Blake's eyes and Olivia's dark hair, and both parents were instantly, completely besotted. The early months of parenthood were exhausting but joyful. Blake helped with nighttime feedings, rocking Benjamin when he fussed, changing diapers without complaint. Olivia fell even more deeply in love with her husband as she watched him with their son, his big hands so gentle, his voice soft as he sang old trail songs as lullabies. "I never knew I could be this happy," Blake admitted one night as they watched Benjamin sleep in his cradle. "A year ago I was alone, wandering, not sure what I was looking for. Now I have everything I could ever want." "We have been very fortunate," Olivia agreed, leaning against his shoulder. "Though I think you sold yourself short. You did not just find what you were looking for, you made it happen. You took a chance on a desperate widow and turned it into something beautiful." "You were never just a desperate widow to me," Blake said seriously. "From the first moment I saw you, I knew you were special. I knew I would do whatever it took to be part of your life." As Benjamin grew, the farm prospered. Blake's predictions about the cattle proved accurate, and they sold their first major herd in the fall of 1880 for an excellent price. The money allowed them to purchase more land, expanding their operation significantly. They hired 2 ranch hands to help with the increased work, young men Blake trained with patience and fairness. Olivia transformed their modest home with improvements funded by their success. She added a proper parlor and expanded the kitchen. She planted flowers around the porch, creating a welcoming entrance. The place that had once been a symbol of her debt and desperation became a true home, filled with love and laughter. In the spring of 1881, Olivia discovered she was pregnant again. Benjamin was now 2 years old, an energetic toddler who followed his father everywhere, trying to copy Blake's walk and gestures. The second pregnancy was easier than the first, perhaps because Olivia was not carrying the weight of past grief. Their daughter, Anna Marie Owens, was born in December of 1881, a perfect complement to their family. She had Olivia's green eyes and a sweet temperament that balanced Benjamin's wild energy. Blake was just as tender with his daughter as he had been with his son, and Olivia often caught him singing to Anna as she nestled against his chest. The years passed in a blur of hard work and domestic happiness. The farm grew into one of the most successful operations in the region. Blake's reputation as a fair dealer and skilled cattleman spread, and buyers sought him out specifically. Olivia managed the business side of things, keeping meticulous records and handling negotiations with a sharp mind that surprised many of the men who had once dismissed her. Benjamin and Anna grew into capable children who learned early how to contribute to the farm. Benjamin showed his father's gift with animals, while Anna had inherited her mother's head for numbers and planning. The family worked together, each member valued and essential. In 1885, when Blake and Olivia had been married for 7 years, they decided to build a new, larger house to accommodate their growing family and success. The original farmhouse held too many memories, some beautiful but some still tinged with pain from Olivia's first marriage. The new house was a 2-story structure with a wide porch, built on a rise that overlooked their expanded pastures. As they stood together watching the construction, Benjamin and Anna playing nearby, Blake pulled Olivia close. "You remember when I first rode up to that old house? You looked ready to shoot me off your property," Olivia laughed. "I thought you were another creditor come to harass me. I never imagined you would be my salvation." "We saved each other," Blake corrected. "I was lost before I found you, Olivia. You gave me purpose, a reason to build something lasting." "You gave me hope when I had none," Olivia replied. "You saw me when I felt invisible. You valued me when others saw only my debts and failures." Their children ran up then, demanding attention, and the moment passed into the comfortable chaos of family life. But later that night, as they lay together in their current home one last time before moving to the new house, Blake made love to his wife with the same passion and tenderness he had shown since their first night together. "I love you," he whispered against her skin. "I have loved you from the beginning, even before I knew what it meant. You are my heart, Olivia, my everything." "I love you too," she replied, tears of joy streaming down her face. "More than I ever thought possible. You are the best man I have ever known, Blake Owens, the very best." In the spring of 1886, they welcomed their third child, another son they named Daniel Henry Owens. The new house echoed with the sounds of children and life, a far cry from the silent desperation of Olivia's widowhood. Blake hired more help, allowing them both more time with their growing family while still maintaining the ranch's profitability. Olivia sometimes thought about those dark months after Thomas died, the crushing weight of debt and loneliness. She thought about the dusty stranger who rode up offering an impossible solution. The whole thing could have gone wrong in 1,000 ways. Blake could have been cruel or dishonest. She could have been unable to move past her grief. Their partnership could have remained merely practical, devoid of real feeling. Instead, they had built something extraordinary. A love that started as a business arrangement had grown into the deepest partnership either of them could have imagined. They had created not just a successful ranch but a family, a legacy that would continue long after they were gone. On their 10th wedding anniversary in 1888, Blake surprised Olivia with a gift. He led her out to the barn where a beautiful new buggy waited, painted a deep blue and upholstered in fine leather. "For the woman who deserves only the best," Blake said, helping her up into the seat. "I thought we could take drives together, just the two of us, when the children are with their grandmother." Martha Patterson had become like family, often watching Benjamin, Anna, and Daniel so Blake and Olivia could have time alone. "It is beautiful," Olivia breathed, running her hands over the smooth leather. "But Blake, this must have cost a fortune." "We can afford it," he said with justified pride. "We have worked hard, both of us, and built something remarkable. I want to enjoy it with you. I want to take you on adventures, show you parts of Texas you have never seen. I want us to have experiences together beyond just work and duty." They took their first drive that evening, heading out along the road that wound through their property and beyond. As the sun set in brilliant shades of orange and pink, Blake pulled the buggy to a stop at a high point that overlooked the valley. "You see all of that?" he asked, gesturing to the land spread before them. "That is ours. We built that together from nothing. From debt and desperation and a stranger's wild proposal. We created something that will last, Olivia. Our children will inherit this, and their children after them." Olivia leaned against her husband, watching the sun sink lower. "I never imagined my life could be like this. After Thomas died, I thought I would spend the rest of my days alone, struggling, maybe losing everything. I certainly never expected to find love again, real love." "Was it love with Thomas?" Blake asked carefully. It was a question he had never posed before. Olivia considered her answer honestly. "I cared for him. But it was an arranged match, and we were both very young. I think we could have grown to love each other deeply if he had lived longer, if he had made different choices. But what I feel for you, Blake, is something entirely different. You are my partner in every sense. You see me as I truly am and love me anyway. You respect my mind as well as my heart. What we have is rare and precious." Blake kissed her then, soft and sweet as the stars began to emerge in the darkening sky. "I would do it all again," he murmured. "Every single moment. Finding you was the best thing that ever happened to me." As the years continued to pass, their love only deepened. They weathered challenges together, droughts that tested the ranch's resources, sick livestock that required careful nursing, the normal trials of raising children. Through it all, they remained united, facing each obstacle as a team. Benjamin grew into a strong young man who shared his father's passion for cattle ranching. Anna developed into a sharp-minded young woman who could calculate profit margins faster than most grown men. Daniel, the baby, showed promise as a horseman, with a natural seat and gentle way with even the most difficult mounts. In 1892, when Blake and Olivia had been married for 14 years, they celebrated their success by hosting a large barbecue for the entire community. Neighbors came from miles around to eat beef from their herd and celebrate with the family that had become pillars of the Brownsville community. As Blake stood to offer a toast, he pulled Olivia to her feet beside him. "I want to thank all of you for being part of our journey," he said to the assembled crowd. 14 years ago, I was a wandering cowboy with money in my pocket but no home in my heart. Then I met this remarkable woman and everything changed. She took a chance on a stranger's proposal, and together we built this life. Every success we have had is because of her strength, her wisdom, and her unwavering support. I am the luckiest man alive to call Olivia Owens my wife." The crowd cheered, and Olivia felt her eyes fill with happy tears. She stood on her toes to kiss her husband, not caring who watched. These were their people, their community, their life. Later that night, after the guests had departed and the children were asleep, Blake and Olivia sat together on the porch of their beautiful home. The night was clear, stars scattered across the sky like diamonds on velvet. "You ever think about that first day?" Olivia asked. "When you rode up to my old farmhouse with your wild proposal?" "All the time," Blake admitted. "I think about how terrified I was that you would say no. I had convinced myself this was the right path, but I had no guarantee you would see it the same way. If you had refused me, my whole life would be different." "Mine too," Olivia said softly. "I would have lost everything. I would be living somewhere else, doing something else, probably still carrying that weight of failure and loss. Instead, I am here in this beautiful home with a man I love beyond measure and children who are my greatest joy. All because you had the courage to make an outrageous offer to a desperate widow." Blake laughed. "When you put it that way, it does sound rather mad, but I have always believed in following my instincts, and every instinct I had told me you were meant to be mine." "I am glad you listened to them," Olivia said, snuggling closer to her husband. "I am glad you saw something in me worth fighting for, worth investing in. You did not just pay off my debts, Blake. You gave me back my life, my hope, my ability to dream again." "You did the same for me," Blake insisted. "Before you, I was just existing, moving from place to place with no real purpose. You gave me a reason to plant roots, to build something permanent. You made me believe I could be more than just a hired hand. You saw potential in me I did not even know I had." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the night sounds of the ranch. The occasional low of cattle, the rustling of horses in the barn, the distant call of an owl hunting. "I want to grow old with you," Olivia said suddenly. "I want to watch our children have children. I want to sit on this porch when we are gray and wrinkled, still holding hands, still in love." "That is exactly what we will do," Blake promised. "I am going to love you until my last breath, Olivia Owens. And probably beyond that, if there is any justice in the universe." The years proved Blake's promise true. As they aged, their love remained constant, a bedrock foundation that supported everything else in their lives. They watched Benjamin marry a kind woman named Sarah and start his own family. They saw Anna wed a lawyer from town, a match that combined her business acumen with his legal expertise to great success. Daniel eventually took over the day-to-day operations of the ranch, his skill with horses becoming legendary in the region. In 1900, when Blake and Olivia celebrated their 22nd anniversary, they were grandparents 5 times over. The ranch had grown into one of the most successful operations in southern Texas, known for quality cattle and fair dealing. Their children were all settled and happy, a testament to the love and values Blake and Olivia had instilled. On the evening of their anniversary, after a family celebration that filled their home with noise and laughter, Blake and Olivia retreated to their bedroom. They looked older now, Blake's hair silver at the temples, Olivia's face lined with the passage of time. But when they looked at each other, they still saw the young people who had taken a chance on an impossible arrangement. 22 years, Olivia marveled, sitting at her dressing table while Blake helped her remove her jewelry as he had done countless times before. "Sometimes it feels like yesterday. Other times it feels like we have always been together." "I prefer the latter," Blake said, kissing the top of her head. "I cannot imagine a life without you in it. You are woven into every part of who I am." Olivia turned to face him, taking his hands in hers. We have built something extraordinary, you and I. Not just the ranch or the money or the success. We have built a family full of love, a legacy of hard work and integrity. We have proven that sometimes the most unconventional beginnings can lead to the most beautiful endings. It is not an ending yet, Blake protested with a smile. We have many more years ahead of us, God willing. Many more sunsets to watch, many more grandchildren to spoil, many more adventures to share. You are right, Olivia agreed. This is not an ending at all. It is just another chapter in our story, a story that started with a dusty cowboy and a desperate widow and grew into something neither of us could have predicted. Blake pulled her to her feet and into his arms, swaying gently to music only they could hear. I love you, Olivia Owens. More today than yesterday, and less than tomorrow. That will be true every day for the rest of our lives. I love you too, Blake Owens. Thank you for seeing me when I felt invisible. Thank you for valuing me when I felt worthless. Thank you for loving me when I thought I would never be loved again. You are my miracle, my answered prayer, my heart's home. They kissed then, a kiss that held 22 years of shared history, of trials overcome and joys celebrated. It held the memory of that first awkward kiss on their wedding day and the promise of countless kisses yet to come. It was a kiss that spoke of partnership and passion, of friendship and forever. As they lay down to sleep that night, wrapped in each other's arms as they had been for thousands of nights before, both felt the deep contentment of a life well lived and a love well earned. The debt that had brought them together was long paid, long forgotten by everyone except them. For Blake and Olivia, that debt represented not a burden but a gift, the circumstance that had allowed them to find each other. The years continued their steady march. Blake and Olivia aged gracefully, their love a constant in a changing world. The turn of the century brought new challenges and opportunities, but they faced everything together, their bond unshakable. In 1905, when they celebrated their 27th anniversary, their children threw them a large party attended by what seemed like half of Brownsville. Blake and Olivia stood together, surrounded by their 3 children, their 8 grandchildren, friends and neighbors who had become family over the decades. Speech. Someone called out, and the crowd took up the chant. Blake looked at Olivia, who nodded her encouragement. He cleared his throat, suddenly emotional. Most of you know the story of how Olivia and I came to be married. It was not a conventional courtship. I rode up to her farm with an outrageous proposal. I would pay her debts if she would marry me. It could have been a disaster. It should have been a disaster by all conventional wisdom. The crowd laughed, and Blake smiled. But sometimes the best things in life come from taking chances, from following your heart even when it does not make logical sense. I knew, the moment I saw this woman, that she was special. I knew I would do whatever it took to be part of her life, and she, bless her brave heart, took a chance on a stranger. He turned to look at Olivia, his eyes shining with love. 27 years later, I can tell you that paying off those debts was the best investment I ever made. Not because of the ranch or the land or any material success, but because it gave me her. It gave me this remarkable woman who has been my partner, my best friend, my greatest love. It gave me our children and now our grandchildren. It gave me a life beyond anything I could have imagined. Olivia stood and joined him, her own eyes wet with tears. Blake offered to pay my debts and asked only for my hand. What he did not tell me was that he was offering his whole heart along with it. He gave me everything. His loyalty, his strength, his unfailing support. He saw me not as a charity case but as a partner, an equal. He built me up when I was broken down. He loved me back to life. She looked out at the assembled crowd. We have been blessed beyond measure, not just with material success, though we are grateful for that too. but with love, real and lasting love, with a family we are proud of, with a community that has supported us through good times and bad. Our story started with debt, but it became about so much more. It became about building a life together, about choosing each other every single day, about creating something that will last long after we are gone. The applause was thunderous. As the party continued around them, Blake and Olivia slipped away to their favorite spot on the porch, watching the sun set over the land they had built together. "No regrets?" Blake asked, as he had asked so many times over the years. "Not a single one," Olivia replied, as she always did. "You." "Only that I did not find you sooner," Blake said, kissing her temple. "But I suppose the timing was exactly as it should have been. We found each other when we needed each other most." As darkness fell and stars began to appear, they sat together in the peaceful quiet, two hearts beating in perfect synchrony. The debt was long forgotten, paid off decades ago. But the love that transaction had sparked burned as bright as ever, a testament to the power of taking chances, of seeing potential where others saw only problems, of believing in the possibility of happiness even in the darkest times. Their story would be told for generations in Brownsville, becoming part of local legend. The cowboy who paid off a widow's debt and won her heart. The widow who took a chance on a stranger and found true love. But for Blake and Olivia, it was never a legend or a story. It was simply their life, their love, their happily ever after earned through courage, commitment, and the unwavering belief that they were meant to be together. And as they grew old together, surrounded by the family and life they had built, they knew with absolute certainty that they had chosen correctly. That day so long ago when a dusty cowboy made an outrageous proposal and a desperate widow said yes.